What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Canes Insight Daily Podcast, powered by Anajar and Levine Accident Attorneys. A lot of big-time pass catchers, not only jumping in the portal, but scheduling visits to the University of Miami. We will talk about multiple names that Miami's in the mix for legitimately that could juice up this passing game. You're losing a lot at the receiver position, at the tight end position. Who can help this offense maintain pace? We got used to a top 10 offense. We want to have that every single year. Who are some of the names jumping in the portal? We will talk about them. First, talk about some folks that always maintain that is Anajar and Levine Accident Attorneys. If you or someone you care about has been injured in an accident, you could be entitled to significant compensation. Dial 1-800-747-FREE, 1-800-747-3733. Take back control of your life. Anajar and Levine. Pete, hop in here.
What's going on, D? Lots of things happening. Some names finally starting to emerge here. I feel like it was a little bit of a slow start, but now you're starting to see some of these visits getting lined up here for pass catchers, which is interesting because we still obviously don't know who Miami's quarterback is going to be next year. Appreciate everyone who's watching live with us. Sean Stewart says it best, hit the like button. Anyone who isn't already subscribed, what are we doing? Got to check yourself if you're not subscribed to the Canes Insight YouTube channel. So yeah, D, let's get right into it because some names, like I said, have emerged as guys who are going to be taking visits to Coral Gables here in the next few days and weeks.
Yeah, let's get right into it. So, well, actually, you know what? Let's bring it back a little bit, Pete, because we're talking about the future, right? The distant future, next season. It's distant from now. It's probably 8 months from now when these guys are going to be rocking and rolling on Green Tree. But in the near future, in Orlando, in that Pop-Tart Bowl, pretty important player saying that he is going to play in that game. That is Cam Ward. We heard him say on that conversation with Shedeur Sanders that he is planning on playing in the Pop-Tart Bowl in Orlando. He now goes on ESPN, a little bigger platform, and says pretty much, I'm planning to play in that game. We're all here. We're all planning to play. We're all watching film. We're all getting ready. Again, I can only go off what he is saying. But Cam Ward was very clear on that ESPN interview, which I transcribed. You can get it on canesinsight.com, 7 million posts and counting, all free if you want to sign up for canesinsight.com. But yeah, Cam Ward said directly, I am planning on playing in the Pop-Tart Bowl. Would be huge. Obviously trying to get that 11th win, which Miami has not done since 2003. There you see the article. This is all free, by the way, on Canes Insight. No premium. Just sign up, sign your name. 7 million posts on the forums, most active Canes community on the planet, plus free content. Don't pay a dime. Sign up today. What are you waiting for? But with Cam, a lot of interesting quotes, but that to me obviously is the headliner, because if you win that 11th game, it hasn't been done since 2003. Yes, the Pop-Tart Bowl, obviously not what we want, where we want to be right now, but you win that 11th game, that is something that's not been done in a long, long time, something you can hang your hat on as you're selling others to the program. You know, I hope Mario doesn't take the trophy around like Mark Richt and Banda does if he does win that game. But at least you have something to sell.
Yeah, and I spoke to someone yesterday who, again, confirmed what Cam is saying, right? As if we need any more confirmation that he's practicing. That's the plan right now. I reported, or I don't know if it was a report, but I said on the podcast the other day that Damian Martinez probably wasn't planning on playing the bowl game until Cam said that he was going to. I heard similarly that Xavier Restrepo plans on playing in the game. So again, these things change. There's still a few weeks before here, and I'm sure there's people in their ear telling them, are you sure you want to do this? But from the team's perspective, from the coach's perspective, they're expected to have these guys for the bowl game against Iowa State.
Yeah. So listen, he said in that interview, again, go to canesinsight.com for free. What are you waiting for? Sign up. Biggest forums, best forums in the Canes community by far. He said straight up, it's not just me. He goes, we are here practicing, preparing to play the game, to go with what you said, Pete, about Restrepo, Damian Martinez, Jalen Rivers, you name it. So big news out of Miami in the immediate future. Now, looking forward a little bit to who is Miami going to add to next year's offense to catch passes. A lot of options, but let's start with the biggest name, and I mean that literally from a size standpoint, Caleb Odom, Alabama's wide receiver / tight end, 6'5", 227 pounds, top 100 player last year from Carrollton, Georgia. Miami recruited him heavily. Played for Alabama as a freshman, not a ton, but you saw him on the field. 7 catches, 65 yards. He entered the portal, has scheduled a visit for Miami December 17th. He's visiting Colorado this weekend. A lot of people expect him to end up at Colorado because his teammate in high school, Juju Lewis, has signed with Colorado, potentially will be a true freshman starter for Colorado next year. And, of course, he's going to be looking for his old friend, Caleb Odom, if he's on the field. So from a pass catching standpoint, that's an obvious choice. You have to weigh whether Deion Sanders will be there next year. Is he going to Dallas, Texas? Who knows? But Caleb Odom, big-time player, one of my favorite players last year from a talent standpoint when he was coming out. Super productive. Key point here, he wants to play receiver. A lot of schools are recruiting him as a receiver. Miami is recruiting with Coach Woodle, who recruited him out of high school as a tight end coach. So probably more of a hybrid role at the University of Miami. He is not going to be lining up in line. I'm a huge Riley Williams believer, and I think Riley Williams is going to have a massive year next year replacing Arroyo. But they're not really the same type of player. So even if he did come to Miami, I think those two would probably play together in a complementary fashion. And maybe he does end up at wide receiver. But just that's a point to note is that when you look at the plan that Miami's presenting to him, I'm sure they're going to show him a lot more film of Elijah Arroyo than maybe an Isaiah Horton.
And D, kind of going out of order here for what we had on our rundown, but I think we should just stick with tight end position because we're already on it. And look, again, Odom could be more of a hybrid guy, but if you're looking for the replacement potentially for what Cam McCormick brought, and we've talked about it, I think that element of what he brought will be missed, and it looks like they're trying to fill that with Micah Riley from Auburn.
Yeah, so I talked about this on CanesInsight.com, and I might have mentioned
this was Gabby Urrutia who reported this.
Right, yep. And I might have mentioned this on the podcast as well, talking about the running back position. I know we're talking about tight ends, but I'll explain how it connects. So you lose Chris Johnson Jr. to the portal. You lose an A.J. Allen to the portal. Damian Martinez likely to go pro. That leaves you with Mark Fletcher, who you know what he's going to do. Jordan Lyle, clearly primed for a bigger role, will probably be your lead tailback, your Martinez replacement next year. Gerard Pringle, top 10 back out of Sefner Armwood, signs. I think he's ready to play right away. He's not a huge back that's going to carry the ball 30 times, but I think as your third back, he's ready to help you next year. Chris Wheatley-Humphrey, smaller back in that 185-pound range, showed some nice things in camp. Obviously a smaller back. He right now is your fourth back tentatively. You don't have a fifth back. So you need to get some bodies in that room. We'll talk about someone later. But I think with Micah Riley, where he fits in is he replaces Cam McCormick if he does come to Miami. He's scheduled to visit as your blocking tight end. Here you see him just crushing people. He's 266 pounds.
And this was 3 years ago, by the way, in high school. So.
Yes, this is high school. He's from Bellevue, Nebraska. This is in the Omaha Metro. He's a 4-star tight end. Miami recruited him out of high school, didn't get him. He goes to Auburn. 3 catches, 43 yards, 2 touchdowns through 2 years at Auburn. Clearly more of a blocking option there. But he has some fluidity. I mean, he can catch the ball. But really, 266 pounds, we know what he's here to do. There again, you see him. He really doesn't look that bad as a receiver. But comes to Miami on his visit, and if you're able to land this player, I think he replaces Cam McCormick as a guy that's going to block for you, catch passes when he's open. I mean, really, he shows a lot of nastiness and thump as a blocker when you watch these highlights. Replaces Cam McCormick, good enough receiver that he can be a credible threat in the red zone and third down if you don't cover him and pay him that respect. Here you see him returning a kick, showing the athleticism. If he is playing more tight end and taking those McCormick snaps, we know Riley Williams is going to play a ton next year and get more of an expanded receiving role. Now you have the ability to play Elijah Lofton more in the backfield, which, again, we have not seen this on the field with the uniform on, but in Green Tree on practice field, he ran the ball extensively as a tailback, Elijah Lofton, and was extremely effective. I'm the biggest Mark Fletcher fan alive, and I think he could do a lot of the same things that you see Fletcher do as a tailback. So that gives you a guy that could play there. You know, Fletcher gets hurt, God forbid. Lofton can play basically that same role as a tailback. He can play that same role regardless if Fletcher's hurt or not, just give you more depth there, more options there. Put him in the backfield. He's also a big-time receiver that can run routes and catch the ball. better than any of your current tailbacks. So he has that tremendous matchup versatility where if he's the only back in the backfield, meaning Elijah Lofton, and then he goes out wide, you got to follow him and he can make plays. He's a very, very polished and skilled receiver. Plus he could be your fullback and lead block. Micah Riley, you get him to that in that McCormick role, getting big snaps when Miami likes to go heavy and run the ball. You free up Lofton to do more. You also have Brock Schott coming in as a true freshman. Luca Gilbert, I believe they're both 4-star freshmen, tight ends from the Midwest. I believe they're both here early. So you can see who's further along there. One of those guys can also play tight end. Now you're freeing up Lofton. But to me, you need a big, nasty, butt-kicking, blocking tight end. Micah Riley fits the bill.
And Assad Hussein says here, surprised they're even looking for a tight end in the portal. That's probably the one position that shows depth, talent, production going into next season. You're losing a lot of production between Arroyo, obviously, and then the element of what Cam McCormick brings. It wasn't a ton of snaps, but it was in key situations, goal line, short yardage. So although the numbers aren't crazy, what he brought is a big piece that's going to be missing, which is obviously what they're looking for here. And again, as D Money just said, Lofton, I don't know if they necessarily view him as just a pure tight end, right? They look at him as an offensive weapon, and getting some other guys to fill some of these other roles lets you use him in other ways. Steven Aveo, any chance Mesidor returns and we let him play? Dia, I don't know if we were talking about it on the podcast the other day, but it looks like there might be a little momentum for that to happen. I know from the NFL standpoint, a couple years ago, before the season he got hurt, he had some buzz as a potential mid-round, 4th to 6th round type of player going into the season. Very scheme specific for what he can do. But I had one team who had like a 3rd, 4th round grade on him before the season. I think with the injury last year and then had some good moments this year, but a bit up and down. Obviously, the whole defense was. I think there might be a chance he comes back.
Yeah, I think so too. I don't think his stock is as high as it can be. He can come back, get more mature, improve his stock, get paid. Miami can certainly use him with his versatility, with his experience, his motor. You're not going to get that many better players than Mesidor out the portal at that position with experience because it's a hard one to get. So I would put a hard sell on Mesidor to come back. If I'm Miami, I think they will as well, just because it makes sense for us. Obviously, if we're paying, he's a guy that makes sense to pay. And from his standpoint, I don't think the NFL opportunity is as good as it could potentially get down the road. So just a couple comments on tight ends I want to get to while we're talking about it. Spo One World says Riley Williams be a monster next year. I agree. So here's the thing on Riley Williams. I'm a huge Riley Williams guy. He is, if you look at his role this year, and he did play a lot of snaps this year, he really was more of a blocking tight end this year in terms of how he was used. Talk about McCormick as a blocking tight end. Riley Williams was also more of a blocking tight end this year. We had a lot of blocking tight ends on the field. That was part of our offense that was unique. We were kind of that air raid spread that can also bring in multiple tight ends and run the ball when you expect that. When the other team expected us to run the ball, we were able to run the ball. Having great blocking tight ends is part of that. Of course, you can always get the ball to them in the passing game in these run-heavy sets. You saw McCormick do that several times. But with Williams, what I think is interesting about Williams, and I'm just pulling up his latest height weight, because he is just, when you see him in person, he's enormous. He's listed at 6'6", 240. I do not believe that's accurate. That was his grandfather's an an active member.
Grandpa Jim on here.
Grandpa Jim. Let me know if you got updated height weight on Riley, but
Cam Gorby's gonna kill us, but
he doesn't look 6'6", 240. He looks 6'6". He does not look 240. He looks closer to 260. He's a big tight end.
Wide frame, wide shoulders. Like I've made that comment before that he really seemed to have filled out before the season compared to last year.
And he's done a really nice job, particularly inline blocking because of his size and he's been coached well and he's shown toughness. Credit to him.
And then had the play against Virginia Tech that showed off his athleticism too.
Spo One World saying 6'7", 270. He's still growing, man. I wouldn't put it past him. So the size is there. But the point I'm making is you look at him like a blocking tight end if you just watch him this year, but his whole career, he's been a receiving first tight end. In high school, he had like 1,000-yard season in Oregon as a junior, which is extremely difficult to do as a tight end. There are very few, shout out to Travis, Always appreciate your support. It's very difficult to be a tight end in high school and get 1,000 yards in a season receiving. That doesn't happen very often. Odom, who we just talked about, was very productive in high school, as was Arroyo, but that's not usual. Even guys that make it big as receiving tight ends, it's hard to utilize those guys. So Riley Williams, that's how he came up. That's why Alabama was after him. That's why Ohio State was after him. He's played more of a blocking role because of Arroyo and because he has the ability to do it, but he has a lot of receiving chops. You saw him catch that shovel pass against Ward. That was against Virginia Tech, and had that nice run, set up a touchdown. So he's got more in him. And I think this year you'll see him take more of that receiving role with Arroyo out. But he's a guy I'm really, really excited about. I think he's really good. He's a talented player.
Now, looking at some of these other pass catchers, right? CJ Daniels, wide receiver, previously at Liberty and then LSU this year. I know you did some digging into his situation, D, and it seems like he's not leaving LSU with, bad blood in terms of like the fans thinking that he was a waste there.
So CJ Daniels, interesting one here. There's a wide receiver. He's visiting Miami on Sunday. He's originally from Liberty, played with Salter, had a great year as a junior there, or this is in 2023, had 1,000 yards, 19 yards per catch, 10 touchdowns at Liberty, transfers to LSU, was a big name in the portal. We were after him hard. Talking to people, it sounds like he was trending towards Miami if Miami would have had their quarterback situation straight at that time. We were still in limbo with Cam Ward. He ends up going to LSU. At LSU, a little bit of a disappointing season from a production standpoint. 42 catches, 480 yards, 0 touchdowns, and his yards per catch dropped from 19 at Liberty to 11 at LSU. So this is a guy, again, from Atlanta area. You see him here at Liberty. He's from the Atlanta, Georgia area. 6'2", 205. Look at the route running and hands. Talking to LSU people and just kind of like taking the temperature of the fan base, people were sad to see him leave, and they thought he was underutilized at LSU, number one. And the other thing is they said he was the best blocking receiver by far. He runs great routes, great hands. The speed was not what it was at Liberty, but when you hear Brian Kelly talk, he says that this guy was playing through a serious heel injury the whole year, that really he should have been sitting out. So if you're trying to say, okay, well, this guy's got size, good route runner, good hands, good blocker, the speed was there at Liberty, but not so much at LSU, you kind of have a reason for it when you say, all right, he was playing through a serious heel injury. That heel is an important part of your body. That's a tough, tough injury, and that will slow you down. So it's not just a transition from Liberty to the SEC that might have hurt his big playability. Might have just also been an injury as well.
Shout out to Lou Porter checking in from Sydney, Australia. What time is it over there right now, man?
I don't know. He's got the waves out there, man. The man's on a surfing mission. Shout out to Lou. We'll see. We'll see. We got Africa. We got Australia. I was going to say
we need Martin Dubé to check in from Africa for us here, and our boy Boyo in Hamburg from Mallorca, I think, in Spain.
There's Martin Dubé right there in the comments. So
there he is.
We're international out here. Appreciate everybody's support. Anthony Manzano saying he thinks that we have McCormick's ready McCormick's replacement ready with Jackson Carver. I'm not sure Carver's there as a blocker to replace McCormick. I haven't seen it. It could be, but that remains to be seen. He hasn't gotten a lot of playing time. I know there's been guys in front of him. That'll be something to watch. But I think with Riley, particularly his size, now I'm talking about Micah Riley, the transfer from Auburn who's visiting, 270 pounds almost. You feel better about his ability to come in and be a blocker.
So let me make sure that I got through the receivers there.
But yeah, but on CJ Daniels, just to reemphasize, visiting on Sunday, Gabby Rudia on 247 reported there's some momentum there. Again, I think that we probably would have gotten this guy last year if we had our quarterback in place. But Brian Kelly, I corrected myself, Pete. Brian Kelly from Notre Dame, the head coach, said his heel injury was almost a dislocation and more significant than people realize. Obviously, by the time he gets here, he'll have time to heal that thing up, but he played through it, so that's pretty impressive.
The Chip Kelly, Brian Kelly mix-up is a classic. That's an OG one when you had a ramp back in the day for the Notre Dame game.
Here goes. Clutch. Been loving the vids, but wasn't subscribed. Definitely had to change that. Keep the content coming, fellas. Community, love it. Appreciate you, Clutch. That's what we do. Listen, we're here every single day. every single day, get you through your lunch break or whatever break you have, talking about portal, recruiting, the game, whatever's on the docket for the Canes that day. Tune in. We will give you everything that's happening with the Canes on a platter with the agenda. You'll get every single bullet point on what's happening with the Miami Hurricanes, the #1 Canes community on the planet. Once the show's done, you go to canesinsight.com for free plug-in, and you'll be talking with people all day. 7 million posts, got thousands of people on at all times talking Canes. So appreciate you for subscribing. Like and subscribe if you have not done so.
D, we have a comment here from Chi-Town Kane asking if we've talked about Michael Van Buren. We haven't in respect to the Canes, but I'm going to use this time to plug our other channel that we want people to subscribe to, which we actually did talk about Van Buren, and we'll talk about him here in a second, Chi-Town Kane. But look, we have this video right here talking about Michael Van Buren, his arm talent, and why he's a really intriguing option in the portal. Again, D and I, obviously we have this every day, but we're now going live every day on this channel, Group Chat Sports. So go hit subscribe. And we're talking transfer portal across the country, coaching movement across the country, and all of it's tied into the Canes somehow, right? So we were talking Bill Belichick yesterday, that move, things of that nature. Today we'll talk about some of these other things happening. But yeah, we'll get into Van Buren now, but just wanted to use that time to plug that.
Yeah, appreciate that. A good plug, Pete. Appreciate your support, Chi-Town. Okay, yeah, group Chat Sports. We're talking every transaction, almost every transaction. There's thousands of them, but we talk as many as we can every single day. Live show like this, plus we break it up into small topic-driven videos as well. So I would appreciate everybody who could subscribe to Group Chat Sports on YouTube. You're really helping us out and supporting us as we try to grow that thing. So again, appreciate all you guys and what you do. With Van Buren, yeah, I was talking to somebody in the scouting community yesterday, and he was kind of saying, like, man, I'm surprised Van Buren's not getting more love. This is a guy with a quick arm. He had a huge game against Georgia, over 300 yards, 3 touchdowns. This is a true freshman starter for Mississippi State. Was not supposed to start. Starter ends up getting hurt. He comes in, plays pretty well, 11 touchdowns, 7 interceptions in the SEC as a true freshman with a team that stinks. That's not bad. You know, he was out there slinging it. The arm talent's there. Again, Georgia, you just watch that film. You see him throwing downfield. Nice quick arm, quick release. Not the biggest guy in the world, about 5'11", but thickly built. You know, he's not like a tiny, skinny guy. He was a player that has some familiarity with Miami. He was part of Coach Duaso's raw 7-on-7 team, which this year has given us Bryce Fitzgerald. It's had given us Drake Stubbs. He decommitted, but Ezekiel Marcelin, Amari Wallace, some of the raw 7-on-7 guys that came to Miami. He was the quarterback, Van Buren, last year. So he's familiar with Miami guys. He's from Baltimore, Maryland, played at St. Francis, powerhouse program there. You know, I don't know. He might be a name to watch. If I'm him, I'm going somewhere where maybe I can take a bigger program and take a seat for a year maybe, and then be the starter, maybe like a Penn State, which is close to Baltimore. To me, that makes sense because this guy's talented, man. He could go to a smaller school and play a lot and just be the starter, but I think this guy's power 4. Just watch that Georgia game. And for Miami, you know, is he going to be your guy that you feel great about this year? Probably not, but I don't think he's below Miami at all. I think the guy can play a little bit.
Let me see if there's any questions here that we'll get to. Herb saying FSU hired Tim Harris as a receiver coach. This is something else we're going to get into in depth on Group Chat Sports later today. But, you know, a lot of what you hear about Florida State's staff is that they lacked energy on the recruiting trail. I think Tim Harris definitely helps that cause in a major way. On the other hand, a lot of what you heard about Florida State and their issues was that the receiver position wasn't being developed. Tim Harris has coached running backs the last few years, and that's kind of been his thing right at the college level. So we'll see. I'm a big fan of his. I think he's, you know, a budding star in this coaching world. He was the offensive coordinator at UCF last year. But interesting fit because, yes, are you going to help your recruiting? Probably. Are you going to be able to probably grab a couple kids from South Florida because of him? Probably. But at the same time, remains to be seen in terms of the development side of things at that position.
Yep. Appreciate you, 904 Hurricane. So I want to talk about a player, Pete, Gabby, who's rock solid, has mentioned the interest that Miami has in this player. I'm working to confirm a lot of things in the portal. I'll give you a full bank when I can get a better idea of Miami's overall playbook as we sit here mid-December. But the name has been linked to Miami, entered the portal from Oklahoma State. I did a profile for him on CanesInsight.com. Again, sign up for free at CanesInsight.com. But this is an extremely, extremely interesting player. Kendal Daniels. He is a linebacker, a converted safety, and he's been extremely productive. He was the Big 12, freshman of the year. He was a freshman All-America, but the freshman of the year in the conference in 2022 playing safety. 6'4", 240, just recently moved to linebacker, was a top 100 recruit out of small town Oklahoma. Reminds a little bit of James Williams, quite frankly, in terms of his trajectory. He was actually a basketball player also in high school, had some nice dunks when you watch his high school highlights. Goes to Oklahoma State, plays safety at first at 6'4", has a great freshman year. Like we said, freshman All-America, freshman of the year. Continues to play well as a sophomore. Last year moves to linebacker, has some ups and downs, but you could see the talent. I went back and watched his games against Kansas State and against Arkansas, and you could see this dude is a big-time talent, just stat-wise for his career. 240 tackles, 7.5 sacks, 13 pass breakups, 5 interceptions, and 2 forced fumbles in 3 seasons. Last year as a full-time linebacker, 64 tackles, 11 tackles for loss. 5.5 sacks. Not the most stout defense last year. I think a lot of people might have soured on just the defense in general at Oklahoma State. Some of the fans, is interesting just seeing James Williams. The way the fans reacted to Kendal Daniels was kind of like how Miami fans reacted to James Williams, saying, hey, this guy's got all the talent in the world, but our defense stinks. This guy, he needs to play a little harder, which you pay attention to those concerns. But me watching 2 games of him, I didn't see like a hair on fire effort guy where you say, man, I love the way this guy plays, but I also didn't see a dog. He was out there making plays. You can tell he's a little tentative, having switched from safety to linebacker, but the instincts I thought overall were good. The fact that he moved to linebacker last year, I think will expedite his development at linebacker. Ray Armstrong, who played 8 years in the pros. James Williams, who's playing in the pros now for the Tennessee Titans, had 3 tackles last week. Those 2 made the conversion in camp. We never got to see them making the conversion here in Miami. Daniels already made the conversion and is on an upward trajectory. I thought he had stopping power as a tackler. When he hit guys, they tended to go down. He did miss some tackles, but he's not soft. He has a physical strike to him and really, really fast. He was chasing down Avery Johnson, who's probably the fastest quarterback in the Big 12, one of the fastest quarterbacks in the country. He was chasing him down, no problem. Good blitzer, good in coverage, as you'd expect with a former safety. Lateral speed, which is what we need here in Miami, the ability to go sideline to sideline. We lacked that on the defense last year. He's got that. He's someone I think you bring in, no-brainer, will improve the athleticism, the talent of your back 7. You still want to add to me at least 1 or 2 tone setting, kind of just cold-blooded killers that are 120% every snap and set the tone for the defense. I don't think he's that, but talent-wise and ability to make plays, the versatility, you bring this dude in 10 out of 10 times.
Yeah, and with a guy like Daniels, just having dealt with players like him over the years as an agent, like what happens with guys like him, it goes one of 2 ways. One, that's either who he is, where you hear about the motor concerns and it just never, that light never goes off. That's just the player that he is. Or 2, because a guy like him, every move that he makes at this point is to help him get to the next level, right? That's the goal in mind. So obviously, as a guy who's draft eligible this year, he's hearing this is what you need to work on from, agents and scouts and people and obviously that's going to be one thing they tell him. So if he takes all this in and really dedicates himself to it, like you said, he has the talent, he has the physical aspect of it, which is what you can't coach, you can't learn. And again, some guys, that light never goes off for them. And then other guys, it's like it all comes together for them at the right time. So I think he could be one of those cases, D.
Yeah, I think, and it's just a fit issue. What do we need? We talked about on the podcast, back 7 players who can play, who can run, who can make tackles, who can chase guys down sideline to sideline. That if teams are trying to horizontal us to death, they're not getting an automatic 8 yards. That to me is what we need. I think this guy brings it. He is definitely a good target for the Canes, and I'm curious to see if he sets a visit. If he does, we will report that right away. As of now, no visits reported with him, but I know Miami has interest as confirmed by Gabby Urrutia. Shout out to Boyo in Hamburg for the daily updates of the madness that is the portal. Yeah, man, the portal's insane. That's one of the reasons why we did that group chat sports endeavor. Again, please subscribe to that one if you haven't. Our project that we're doing, just to keep track of all these transactions, man. There's so much. And to understand college football, even beyond Miami, you have to understand all these transactions because teams change so much from year to year. It's absolutely insane. And like, I mean, Spun, how do I pronounce that first name? Let me know, Mr. Worrell. But he's saying the playoffs, people are going to jump in after the playoffs. You know, it's not just the guys that are in the portal now. When the playoff ends and your team gets eliminated or your bowl game ends, you got 5 more days to jump in, even if the portal deadline is closed. So you're going to see a lot of names jumping in the portal at multiple positions.
So a couple more names to get to here.
Oh, wait, hold on, Pete. Before we get to it, I want to say a name in a culinary name. If you're hungry, it's lunchtime. I know you're thinking about eating lunch. Maybe you're already eating lunch and you're saying, man, I wish I had something better. Islas Canarias, the #1 Cuban restaurant in the world. Multiple locations across Miami, but the new one is the hot one in Dayland Mall, the dining pavilion, the food court. They got all kinds of croquetas, 7 types of croquetas, including the most famous, the classic ham, which is voted the best croqueta in Miami numerous times. Plus, they got the kimchi croqueta if you want to be a little adventurous, some Korean Cuban fusion. They got all kinds of meats, steak, pork dishes, you name it. This is authentic Cuban cuisine, 40 years running. If you know, you know. Anybody in Miami knows. If you want to show up to your holiday party loaded, go to the holiday menu, the catering menu, islascanarias.com. Load it up, get a ton of croquetas, show up there with the big box, and you'll be ready to rock and roll.
All right, so a couple more names here that Miami has offered here in the portal. The first being running back kick returner Lloyd Babyface Avant. Any relation to Jason Avant?
Good question. I don't know. This guy's from Humble, Texas, so Houston area.
Humble, Texas. There was someone else the other day from Humble, Texas that we were talking about. I'm trying to remember who it was.
Yeah, Houston area. These guys produce tons of studs. Signed with Tulsa. So you look at his stats as a freshman at Tulsa. This guy was a running back. And you say, all right, well, 76 carries, 259 yards, 1 touchdown. Why are we after this guy? 5'10", 196, 3-star. Then you look at the kickoff returns. 28 yards per return, 10th in the nation. He had a 100-yard return to the house. And I think you understand the picture, which is we talked about it a little bit with Mike O'Reilly, how you wanted to use Lofton more as a running back so you could bolster that running back room. There's another way to bolster your running back room. It's very hard to recruit somebody to be your 4th, 5th running back, right, out of the portal. Guys are in the portal because they want to run the ball. They're not seeing, Jordan Lyle, Mark Fletcher, Gerard Pringle and saying, man, this looks like a great opportunity for me to run the ball day one. But when you get a guy like this, if you do get him, they're trying to set up a visit now. You saw the tweet with the offer. He's your kick returner right away, top 10 in the country. So now you've bolstered your kickoff return game. You lose Chris Johnson, who's in the 30s in kickoff return, depending on what day it was. Then you go to this guy who's 10th in the nation. You improve there right off the top. You also the guy who can play running back in an emergency. He's now your 4th and 5th back. So you solve 2 problems at once. You help your team right away. You help your depth. And you can sell him because you don't have to say, hey, listen, come here and be our top back. But you can say, listen, you're going to get a chance and you're going to be our kick returner day one. Easier sell. This to me is how you solve that running back depth problem. Because when you have 3 really guys you feel really, really good about, you're not going to bring in a great guy to be your 4th and 5th guy unless they have versatility like Avant does, or you're moving Lofton back there and using his versatility. So that to me is why the whole thing makes sense with the Mike O'Reilly offer and then also the Avant offer in terms of trying to bolster your running back depth.
And then another offer and now visit that's been set is a name from the past here that we've talked about plenty, not recently, but Kayvon Broussard, the tackle out of Louisiana, right? He was from Louisiana originally. Signed
from New Iberia, same town as Jabari Antoine, who signed this year as a corner.
So he's transferring from Ole Miss, was committed to Miami during last cycle. And I remember was a guy who really blew up late. Miami got on him early, athletically, through the roof, really good movement ability. And it's obvious that Miami still thinks pretty highly of him.
Yeah, I think Miami wants to bolster the talent in the offensive line room, not necessarily the starters, because you feel good about, well, they're on the market for a center. We talked about that. And Ryan Rodriguez is going to compete there as well. But you got 4 guys returning as starters between Markel Bell, who played starter reps this year, Inez Cooper, Francis Mauanoa, Matt McCoy. You feel pretty good about all those guys. It's the depth that you want to build up, the talent depth. Obviously, they wanted this guy to be a tackle of the future last year. That's why he was in the class. He flipped really close to signing day, and that was not something they wanted. But when you watch if you want to throw up his huddle clips.
That was the wrong.
Okay. Yeah. So go find him. Anyways, so he was a late blooming type of tackle prospect. Tall guy, very athletic. I believe he played basketball as well. But he started coming on later, and people in the area started saying, hey, this guy's got a lot of ability. And Miami got on him early. It's hard to get guys from this region to Miami. But Miami got on him early, and they looked like he was committed. It looked like they were going to be able to add this guy to the class last year. Ends up flipping at the last second to Ole Miss, who put on a lot of pressure late. Of course, SEC was just a closer school to where he is at New Iberia, so they were able to get that done. But now he's very quickly jumping in the portal, scheduled visits Miami. Didn't play this year, and I don't think he would have played in Miami either. He was a developmental guy who hadn't played a lot of tackle. But the idea is you coach him up. You can't coach the height and the length at 6'6". You can't coach the athletic ability and the flexibility and the movement that he brings to the table. So get him in your system, coach him up, and maybe 2 years down the road, you have a tackle who you can feel good about in playing. Last year, you had Nino Francavilla inside, who you signed, had a little bit of playing time this year from Canada. Markel Bell, who was a hit for sure, but only 1 more year of eligibility because he came from JUCO. And then Derek Plaz, tackle, guard, hybrid. He could play tackle, but maybe lengthwise, you feel better about him inside. He's about 6'4.5". From Jacksonville Mandarin. Good player. You beat Penn State out for him, but maybe more of a high floor type of offensive lineman as compared to Broussard, who you watch here. This is all about the ceiling. You see the length, you see the athleticism. It's easy to spot which one he is. Just look how quickly he gets off the line, the twitch that he plays with. That's one thing I like to look for is how quick does this guy burst off the whistle, and this guy does very quickly. You can tell he's a fast twitch guy. You see him down blocking, finishing blocks. And the length. This is a prototypical tackle body, flexible. Again, he had not played a lot of tackle at a high level really before his senior year.
Good feet, though. Really good player.
Yep. So
potentially, because he still hasn't really played much. So.
Yep. So this to me is one that makes a lot of sense to bring in, bolster your depth. He's not going to help you this year, but he's going to improve the talent in that room.
Without a doubt.
Look at my guy Boyos in Spain. He says he's eating all that Cuban food from the original source. There you go. The old style croquetas. I got to be honest. I like the New World croquetas better for me. I've had the Spanish croquetas. They're cool, but I like the New World, the Caribbean croquetas a little bit more.
All right, D. Well, your episode of Storm Sessions dropped yesterday, your new episode of Storm Sessions with Kiko Mauanoa. So I wanted to pull that up here. Everyone go check this new episode out.
Yeah. So, I'm lucky enough to do shows with the University of Miami officially. This is on the University of Miami's official YouTube, which you guys are probably already subscribed to. But if you're not, go ahead and do that with the UM. And it's also on Apple Podcasts and Spotify called Storm Sessions. This is a show I do right there in the UM studios with UM student athletes, learning more about them, who they are, where they come from. Kiko Mauanoa was awesome to talk to. Talked about growing up in Samoa. Talked about why he chose Miami. Talked about why Cristobal's able to recruit Polynesians so well and connect to them. Talked about some of the traditions that he keeps, like the Ulafala. If you're a wrestling fan like me, that Ulafala is a major part of WWE storylines right now. Kiko explains the real meaning behind it and how it applies to Samoan culture. And they actually got that pretty accurately in WWE, talking to him about it. Really, really great kid. And there's a ton of those. You really see why the character of this program's increased so much, and guys are committing to play in the bowl, for example, despite having the chance to leave early, something we haven't seen in the past. When you get to know these players, you understand why in my opinion, the character of the team is elevated so much. We interviewed Cam Ward earlier, Damian Martinez, Mish Powell, A lot of really, really great kids. Ines Cooper, really enjoyed that series. So please like and subscribe. I know we're giving you a lot to subscribe to, but man, we were trying to carry you guys. I know you guys are content fiends. You love Miami Hurricane football. I know it sounds like we're promoting it, but we're trying to direct you guys to some great content. Really cool, different things from what we're doing. Here at Canes Insider, we're giving you the latest daily Canes content, portal, recruiting, the minutia, everything under the sun daily. That's why I ask you to like and subscribe here. Group Chat Sports, which we're doing on a broader scale, not just Miami. That's just keep track with the daily transaction wire of college football, recruiting, portal, coaching changes. Keep up with that. It's a live daily show like this one. We usually record right after, plus little individual videos on each topic, and then storm sessions, which I do through the University of Miami. That's going to be your sit-down interviews, 30 minutes usually, with players like Kiko, like Cam Ward, like Ines Cooper. A lot of fun there. We'll continue to do that throughout the year. So again, appreciate all your support, man.
And some cool news yesterday for a pro Cane, a guy that I worked with at FRM, John Ford, is now on the active roster for the Bears. He's been with the Packers. He was a 7th round pick for them coming out. And so, really good opportunity now for John Ford here. Always at the end of the year here for some of these teams, take a flyer on a big athletic defensive tackle. And you never know, man. Hopefully he has a really strong last few games of the season here for the Bears. And look, you flash enough with that body, then you'll be on someone's active squad again next season.
Yeah, I remember you came on here when we first started doing this podcast again together, and you were saying, like, look, people need to talk about John Ford as a pro. People need to talk about DJ Ivey as a pro. And everybody's like, how could you talk about these guys? They're not really flashing for us right now, and we're not a very good ball club. But the traits care. You got to get more out of those guys while they're at UM because they're pros. John Ford, as you mentioned, on an active roster, extremely happy for him. DJ Ivey, if you were watching the game on Monday, he was there. I mean, the last snap of the game when they're trying to win the game, playing defense, he's out there on the defensive side, plus playing a very big role in special teams. And that's after a torn ACL last season. So DJ Ivey, clearly a part of Cincinnati's future. That's why they've kept him around and continue to play him. Extremely happy for him. He's someone I took a lot of bullets for. Everybody was always saying, D-Money, why are you hyping up DJ Ivey, man? This guy's a scrub. He shouldn't even be playing D1. Obviously, playing in the NFL, in the AFC North, big snaps. So shout out to DJ Ivey. Shout out to John Ford with the Chicago Bears. We got to get more out of these guys while they're in Miami. Those pro bodies, those athletic bodies, they don't grow on trees. There's only so many of them in the pros. The percentage of guys that make the pros is minuscule. You got to get those guys to perform at the University of Miami when you have them. One name that John Ford is compared to a lot, I also want to shout out, Pete, and I'll get the link here on Twitter, but Donta Simpson from Chaminade. This is the defensive tackle signee for the Canes. Big body guy, very, very strong, very athletic, compared physically, Pete, I'm sending you a link here in the chat, to John Ford. He was 16 years old. I believe he was 16 when he committed. I believe he's still 16, or he's a very young 17. He's going to be 17 when he gets to Miami. So he's a young player at a position in defensive tackle where maturity is huge. So you could expect big growth from him. He had major flashes this year for Chaminade, had an injury, but had some inconsistency also, but the flashes are great. And this is him yesterday in the Pitbull Stadium, winning the state championship for Chaminade, making a tackle for loss. You talk about John Ford, who, as my guy Mohammed Hussein, I always appreciate you, points out, 1% chance to make the NFL. John Ford's in that 1%. Donta Simpson, Miami Hurricane signee, a lot of similarities body-wise to John Ford, making a play in the backfield here.
And just talking about kind of the comment you made about Miami, how they have to get more out of guys like this. There's no guarantee that these physical traits we're talking about are going to make guys superstars, but you'd like to see more consistency out of them is the whole thing, and playing a role when they're here at Miami.
Yeah, look, again, they don't have to all be superstars, but get more production out of them. They should at least be impactful players that help you get to a playoff game, help you win the ACC championship. I promise you, go look at the ACC championship game. There's not that many guys that look like John Ford. There's not that many guys that look like DJ Ivey. You got to get more production out of those guys. Look at the versatility, by the way. My man, Me Jr. saying, a lot of Cuban food didn't originate in Spain. The original inhabitants and African culture are heavy influences of Cuban food. That's true, especially when it comes to the African side. The Indian side, not as much in Cuba as it is in other Latin American countries, but African, huge part of the culture in all facets. Obviously, a lot of Cubans of African descent. It's a big mix, man. You got, my ancestors come from the Canary Islands, the Wanchas. That's my lineage on my mom's side. My wife's Lebanese Cuban. Pete, I don't even know what you are.
Basque region of Spain, baby.
Basque region of Spain. There it is. So a lot of different stuff in Cuban. Chinese Cuban as well. There's some Chinese Cuban food. My guy with the Cajachina Avian. If you've ever been at a Hurricane game and you see somebody roasting a pig on sort of like an Asian type of grill, that's going to be the Cajachina, the Chinese box. That's Chinese Cuban right there. So all different kinds of influences in Cuba here. What else?
Guys, remember to like this video and subscribe to the channel too. We've been shouting out the group chat a lot, but like this video and subscribe to the channel. We got almost got over 1,100 live here, so appreciate everyone who's on here. Yeah,
if you guys like the lunchtime lives, let us know, because it seems like they're getting a lot of traction and people are jumping in and the community's starting to form. So if you like this time, if you like us going live at this time, maybe we'll make this a consistent thing and do it every single day. We're on every day anyways, but timing wise and going live seems like we found a little spot here that you guys like. So we'll stick with this one. Oh, here we go. Look at this. Martin Dubé from Botswana. Look at the culture you get on the Canes Insight Daily podcast, saying the Canary Islands are named after a type of dog, not a bird. I did not know that. Yeah, on my mom's side, the name is Wancha. That's like our last name on my mom's side. And those are the original inhabitants, the indigenous people of the Canary Islands, who actually came from North Africa as Berbers. So the indigenous people of the Canary Islands were actually Africans from the north that drifted into it's not that far. They're able to get to that island. So when the Spaniards came, there were already people there who originally were from North Africa. So that's the whole story there. It's a eclectic mix of people here in Cuba, now in Miami, and with the Miami Hurricanes, especially this year, man. We got a lot of different kinds of people on the Miami Hurricanes making plays in the Pop-Tart Bowl. Recruiting wise, the portal's really changed the makeup of the team, where you got Samoans like Kiko Mauanoa, you got people from Texas, got people from all over the country, the Northwest like Mish Powell. That's one of the cool things about the portal, that you're getting all these different types of players from different parts of the country on the same roster. What else we got football wise, Pete? We ran through a bunch of names here.
I think that's everything we had on our own rundown, unless something's popped up during the show, which I have not seen.
Here, guys, get your questions in the chat. We'll get through. We'll talk about Miami Hurricane Team Store, but while we're doing that, get your questions in the chat so we can answer a few more before we get out of here. But we wanted to talk about the Miami Hurricane Team Store. It's the official retail provider of the Miami Hurricanes. If you want to go in person, it's right across the street from the University of Miami, next to the Thesis Hotel, right there on South Dixie Highway. Or if you're rather just go online, if you're not local, MiamiHTS.com. Look at all this gear. We'll get you loaded up for the winter season. If you're trying to buy holiday presents, Christmas presents, Hanukkah presents, whatever it is, MiamiHTS.com. You can get your shopping done there. Promo code INSIGHT20. That's promo code INSIGHT20. 20% off your first item in store or online. MiamiHTS.com. Now, here's a question from Kirk Granger. And actually, we were talking about this morning with some people. Do you want Jalen Alderman to get playing time next year? Yeah, I mean, right as of now, he's one, and this is not based on any information whatsoever, right? This is total speculation. So don't read more into this than what I'm saying. But, when you get a guy that coming in through the portal and they don't play as much as you might expect, they're potential reportal candidates. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen with Alderman, but he does have eligibility. So if he sticks around, you have experience there to get more playing time. I think what you really are looking for next year with the linebacking core, this is my personal opinion, speed, right? More Bobby Pruitt, who's shown a lot of speed. 22, moving from safety to linebacker. As he gets bigger, we'll see some more speed there. A guy like Kendal Daniels or someone similar in the portal who can go sideline to sideline, can cover, and can really bring that versatility. That's something to watch. Maybe a Wesley Basaint, instead of being a weak side linebacker like he was this year, he moves to middle linebacker and replaces Mauanoa. He's faster than Mauanoa, more athletic. So by moving him to middle linebacker and then getting a more athletic weak side linebacker than Wesley, you improve your athleticism in two spots. We were not good enough horizontally And I think we just need to get better there from an athletic standpoint because teams killed us running outside, throwing quick screens outside. We were a second late on everything sideline to sideline because we just didn't have enough speed.
Kyle is asking, why would Miami not bring in Fernando Mendoza, let him compete with Emory Williams? I mean, look, I think wherever Mendoza goes, he's not competing. He's going to go be the guy who'll make $1 million plus wherever he ends up. Indiana looking like a likely destination now. His brother's there. Georgia, they're saying Georgia might be interested in him, which that seems like a pretty interesting situation. He's would be replacing Carson Beck, but I mean, I don't know. Obviously Miami doesn't seem too enamored with the names in the portal right now, right? So I'm not going to say that doesn't mean that something still couldn't happen with a Mendoza, right? Obviously there's the ties there, but just from the way I read it, and I said this yesterday, I just have the hunch that whoever Miami is interested in, if they're not going to go with Emory Williams here, is not in the portal yet.
Yeah, the reporting on Mendoza this morning from, I want to say it was from On3, they said Mendoza looking at UCLA, Wisconsin, Georgia, which is interesting, and then Indiana, with a lot of people looking particularly at Indiana because his brother, Alberto Mendoza, who followed him at Columbus, is a scholarship quarterback at Indiana. He's a backup, but I mean, a scholarship player, someone in line to play, not just like a walk-on or someone that he's just there. Mendoza is potentially the quarterback of the future in Indiana. Maybe they want to sit him and get him developed a little more. You bring in his brother. Now you go brother to brother. Obviously, they work together hand in hand. And now you have a pipeline of Mendoza's at Indiana. Great program, very well coached. So that's a program he's been linked to is Indiana, where his brother is, which to me, I think makes a lot of sense. Curtis Rourke, one of the most efficient players in the country, pocket passer. You put Mendoza in there. He's your face of your franchise, but he's going to be expensive. In terms of bringing him in and having to compete with Emory, like you said, that's an expensive dude to be competing for a job. I think anywhere he goes, he's probably going to be the starter walking in because he's going to get paid a lot.
Canes Cats T305 says, question of both of you, why is Miami offering so many offensive linemen in the portal? Why are they looking at the freshmen in the portal instead of guys they recruited? Are we missing on our evals? I mean, look, I think it's a few things. With O-line, number one, it's a position of bodies. You need bodies. Injuries can pile up quickly there. Luckily, that wasn't necessarily the case this year. I don't think that many people expected Markel Bell to be needed this year, right? And we ended up seeing the sort of role that he played this season. You're losing Jalen Rivers, who played left tackle, but had the ability to play all across the line. So he kind of like made up for some the need for like an extra interior lineman at times, right? Because he would have slid in. He did slide inside a good amount, but you're losing him. You're losing Zach Carpenter, and the freshman class they're bringing in now. I don't think that those guys are going to be ready to play right away. It's a position of development, unless your name is Francis Mauanoa. For the most part, but yeah, that would be my answer on it, D.
Yeah, every team wants offensive line depth. All right, that's
at every level of football, by the way.
There's a scarcity. I get this word wrong every time. Correct me in the comments. Of talented offensive linemen, period, at all levels of football. It's just one of the big changes of football is as you become more of a passing game, defensive linemen have really surpassed offensive linemen with athletic ability and just talent. So that's a problem for every program. Miami, you talk about, Canes Cats asking us, do we miss on our evals? A guy like Kavian Broussard, who Miami's trying to bring back on a visit as a redshirt freshman, he was committed to Miami. So Miami evaluated him and wanted him really before anybody. Ended up going to Ole Miss. That didn't work out. Now he's back in the market. The scarcity. There we go. Appreciate you, Bill K. So it's not like they missed on the eval of Broussard. They evaluated him, had him committed, then he flipped. Now they got a chance to get him back. So it's actually trusting their initial evaluation there. But I think they just want more talent. They want more talent in that room. I think last year's really, to me personally, the last two offensive line classes, I don't think were at the level of what you want. Not that they were bad, not that you don't have great players in there, but they weren't at the level you want. So you want to supplement those so you get back to the level you want talent-wise. Also, I think it's very important to continue developing guys like Kinsler and Tinalau, who really has a chance to be good. I think both those guys really have a chance to be good. But offensive line don't always hit as true freshmen and sophomores. It takes time for a lot of these guys. Third year, fourth year, fifth year. That's when you see them pop. I hope those guys stick with the program and cook and get to where they need to go in terms of playing at the University of Miami, because both those guys have talent. It's not just about the guys you add, sometimes about the guys you keep and develop.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think sometimes these portal offers and visits don't always signify like what the coaches think about guys on the roster. Sometimes you can read into it, but just because they're offering O linemen doesn't mean they're giving up on guys who are in there. You're losing a lot of production, a lot of snaps, and you need bodies. You need them, because if you expect the Ryan Rodriguez to step up, who's now coming in as his guy, as the guy behind him, and you need to layer that depth on the O line. Miami's been lucky with injuries there for the most part, even though you did miss Jalen Rivers for a good amount of time this year, but they've been very lucky there. When those injuries pile up on the O-line, it's difficult, man, because you have to shuffle a lot of things.
Yep. Last question we get to. Appreciate all you guys been going for an hour live. Like and subscribe to this channel. If you don't, we got almost 1,200 on the live. We're like this every single day. The numbers have been insane. The community's huge, so active. The chat, I catch myself watching the chat when I got to be focused on the show. So again, appreciate all of you in the chat and listening audio, whatever it is. Like and subscribe to this show if you have not done so. All right, so last one here I want to get to. Kirk Granger, regarding the portal, what positions do we invest the most money into? It's a case-by-case basis. For me, look, Cam Ward was the most expensive player on the roster by far last year. I don't think that surprises anybody. It depends. Defensive line is always going to be a position that you spend a lot of money on. A guy like Simeon Barrow, who came in and was a first-team All-ACC defensive tackle, you had to beat out LSU to get. And that was a post-spring tackle, so there were really no one on the market. You got to imagine, for a first-team all-conference defensive tackle that you're competing as the SEC for, and it's post-spring, and there's no other portal period coming up, you can imagine that's a top dollar purchase. So I'd say quarterback, defensive line is where you really are spending a lot of money. To me, I think defensive back, we've got to start spending more money and doing better at the high school level, because those guys are hard to get on the portal at the really, really high levels of athleticism.
All right, guys. Remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel. As Bill says, we're coming at you live every day here on Canes Insight Daily. Check out canesinsight.com, the forums, keeping you updated to the minute on all of the movement here in the transfer portal. And then if you want more of D Money and I in the next 20 minutes or so here, 30 minutes, we will be going live on Group Chat Sports, talking transfer portal and coaching movement across the entire country. So we'll tweet that link out in a bit, but go hit that subscribe button on Group Chat Sports as well. See you guys over there soon, and we'll see you here on Canes Insight tomorrow.
Go Canes.